Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. Those of you that will be tuning in or are tuning in soon. I'm here with Jennifer Foster. Jennifer Foster has created or developed a unique, interesting dynamic. It's called energy dynamic model or method. And she'll be here to explain to us all what this is about, who this is targeting, who this would be best for, and what they can hope to gain from it. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us. And I'll let you explain who you are, what this method is, what this is for.
Thank you, Karleen. Well, basically, it's an intuitive way of understanding how people work in modern society, which once you know, you can then sort of see what's going on in a much clearer way, rather than everything being muddled up and confused and being in the drama. You can start to see what is going on and how to build up your own inner strength. And by building up your own inner strength, you become much less vulnerable to the mind issues and other things that I'm sure we're going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I developed it from observation of people over about 25, 30 years, ranging from people with learning difficulties, mental health problems, business coaches, spiritual people. I worked with a Reiki master, an acupuncturist, as well as millionaires, and I saw a pattern that everyone was following, that the human being followed, never mind the situation or never mind what was going on. And I just put it together to create this model. So to me, it's a little bit like the highway code, where if you understand what the roads mean, what the road signs mean, what side of the road to drive on, then when you get in your car, you can do your journey. But if you don't know the highway code and if you don't know what the signs mean, it doesn't matter how good you are in your car, you can't actually get anywhere. So to me, it's like a highway code, a framework that you can use to make sense of everything.
Nice. So let's go back though. You told me that you studied economics, but then you switched over and you started working in the mental health industry, right?
Yeah.
So what made you make that switch? What made you go from working what were you working as?
Well, I was studying. I was just, like 18, going to Polytechnic. It was in the UK then, and it's a bit of a long story. But basically, I went on the wrong course. They put me on the wrong course by accident, and it was economics, and I'd never done it before. But my first lecture I found so inspiring, because the lecturer was saying, why do people make BMWs and not kidney machines?
Yes.
And he said the answer is you'll find that answer in this if you study economics. And I thought, I'm going to study this. And but I was studying it anyway by accident. So I changed a lot of little modules. So I was doing like welfare economics, analysis of economics, not so much banking and all that. I was more looking at the system.
Mm-hmm.
So I was absolutely fascinated by it. And then later on, I did a master's degree in it because the lecturers wanted to provide a course where you could actually analyse the capitalist system rather than just doing economics to get a job in a bank.
Yeah.
And that only lasted 4 years, because after 4 years, because no one wanted to do it, the university stopped doing the course. So I've count myself as very lucky. But meanwhile, what I actually wanted to do, the who I was, I guess, was I used to be a performer. I used to like acting and stuff, and that's what I wanted to do as a career. So whilst I was trying to do that, I was just looking for some work, and I found work working with long-term unemployed, helping them get back to a job. And because it was sort of motivating them, and I had done theatre, and I was used to standing there in front of an audience and just generally speaking talking, I applied for it, and I got the job, and it opened up a whole new world to me, because there were these people sitting in a room, about 20 of them, all long-term unemployed, all totally angry, totally depressed, totally frustrated, totally disrespected, and I saw them all as quite beautiful, kind of creatures, you know. And I did it for 2 years, and every week there was 20 more people, and over them 2 years, I saw that if people were treated in a kind of humble way and given respect, and they understood each other, by the end of that week, they were all communicating. They all were friends. They all had ideas, and they all were inspired. And that again started to make me think, well, what's going on here? Because all these people are supposed to be having an issue, you know, but you put them in a room and treat them well. And there was all sorts of different people there. There was gay people, straight people, black people, white people. They'd never even spoken to someone like that often, but because they were in this room, they had to. And they got to know each other, and they suddenly saw each other as people, and suddenly started to not be separated. And once they went separated, they then started to create, and that's what got me going. And then after that, I wanted to follow my nose on it, and I started to work with mental health, and the same thing happened. I found that people's mental health issues got better if you help them understand their mind, if you help them understand who they were, if you create an environment where they could thrive, their issue would go. Not overnight, but it would improve. It would improve. And then because I'd done the economics and I saw what the system did and how the system basically was just a game, I just slowly started to put it all together. And then later on in my life, when I went self-employed to do this, I started to work with business people. They taught me more about the mind. Spiritual people, they showed me how to fit in what they knew into this model. And then I myself got myself into situations where there was abuse going on and all that sort of stuff. So I managed to put that in it too. So in a funny sort of way, I feel I either observed or directly experienced kind of a bit of everything. That much, not enough to sort of destroy me, but enough to know, you know, what needed to be put in. And I finished it about 5 years ago, and then the last 5 years I've been writing books and doing videos because I wanted to do it differently, because before I was just doing it over the top of my head. But because of the situation I was in, I thought if I write it down and make videos, then I can actually make it into a usable system for anyone, so anyone can use it, you know, because it's intuitive. You don't have to have a degree in psychology. You don't have to have any science knowledge. It's just intuitive. It's simple, and it's based on evidence, and it's true, you know. And you can find loads of evidence now in science with neuroscience to back it up.
So this model helps you to develop your ability to target faulty thinking or faulty perception and then transform that.
Not really. What it does is it shows you how you operate. So okay. You'll think, oh, once you understand it, and I'll talk a bit more about what it is in a minute, but once you understand it, you'll think, oh yeah, I'm getting energy from my mind. Oh, I'm getting it from my spirit. Oh, I'm not getting any from who I am. Oh, this is what I feel. This is why I'm doing that. You know, this is why I'm doing that. So rather than think that there's something wrong with you or you're mad or whatever, you've suddenly got the knowledge, the power to understand what you're doing things for. And once you are empowered to understand what you're doing things for and how your mind works and what relationship that has with who you are, once you understand that, it's like, oh wow, I can now see that I'm not crazy in my mind.
Yeah.
My mind is just the result of what I feel and who I am and my environment.
So you help recognize true intention.
Yeah, and I teach people in the middle stages how to make friends with their mind. So a lot of ideas actually make you fight against your mind. Like you hear all this stuff about monkey mind and controlling your mind and manipulating your mind. And I'm like, no, you don't do that. You actually make friends with your mind, because your mind is there to help you. Your mind is there to help you. And the only reason why it takes you over is because you feel sad. And because you feel sad, and then you feel bad, your brain shuts down that feel. So you can't compute things because you can't gather up knowledge and information. When you're cut off, you can't do it. So your mind takes over. So then you start to be run by your mind. And like we were saying the other day, you're then cut off from, you know, the God spirit in you as well. So you're in your mind, and your mind is chaotic, and your mind is buzzing, your mind is on this different vibration, and it gets quite stressful and quite angry and quite emotional and happy and this and that, and it's exhausting, quite frankly. And once you understand that, and once you make friends with your mind and you start working with your mind calms down because you're actually working with it, and then you can start to do what I call gather up your plus feels, gather up good feels, understand who you are, which I go into in detail. Realize that maybe you're feeling a bit squashed, which is why your mind is taking you over. Realize that maybe you are carrying lots of grief, which most people are. You learn how to empty them. And then when you empty them, your mind calms down even more. So it's a kind of a clearing. It's a sort of a cleansing and a clearing. And it's a cleansing of your bad, sad feelings. It's a clearing of the mind. And then suddenly you're able to see truth.
Right.
Suddenly you're able to see truth because you're not being triggered every 5 minutes by your mind. And as I said, I can explain a bit more of that in a minute. And then once you start to see truth, you can start to bring spirit down into this planet, because you are clear to do that.
Right. And that's what it's about, to incarnate more, right?
Yeah. Rather than having to go up, mind, spirit up, because you can't go down. By you being on the ground, literally on the ground, the spirit can come in and down, and you can then use that to create. And that's where things really start to happen. And that's sort of stage 3.
We were talking about that, how a lot of people seem to think like the best thing is to transcend, is to like drift away and leave this earth, and like just, the body is an empty shell that moves through and just floats above the ground kind of thing. But that's not the way it is at all. That's like missing the mark.
Exactly. We're here for a purpose.
Out of this world is through this world. That means we have to experience this world fully, completely, and consciously in order to, we can't just, drift away. So you help people do that, like help clear the energy so that they can fully incarnate.
Yes. And be who God created you to be, because everyone is unique. Everyone is special. Everyone.
So this helps find life purpose, like everything. It should be taught in schools. Like this is something that should be taught in schools instead of where currently.
To be all mind, gold star, let's be a brainy robot. We're human, and again we can talk about that later, but we are human beings who have the ability, and this is why again maybe other entities are trying to have us, because we have a magical power, because we are part of God, who is out of time, out of space, so we can bring that here, and we can actually create, and that knowledge has been lost completely in this system, but we have it. We have it.
Yes.
And if you kind of fall through the rabbit hole with this idea, you can take it as far as you can take it, to be honest. People use it sometimes.
Jump down the rabbit hole. Let's go all the way. I'm ready. No worries.
If people,
I took the red pill a long time ago.
if people do jump down a rabbit hole, then they can they're actually changing the vibration of the 5th dimension into the 3rd dimension through alchemy.
Yes.
Alchemy. And that's sort of I don't know this, but I believe this. I don't know this, but this is what we can do. This is why we are so powerful. But for other reasons, that's why we're being cut off, to stop us doing that. For some reason.
Cut off means for those of you that are watching this and going to be watching this and haven't jumped down the rabbit hole yet, there are programs or thought forms that are being generated, or frequencies, vibrations that are being generated that keep us from thinking or resonating into certain frequencies, that would develop us further, right? So it's like they're keeping us mentally locked down. It's kind of like being in school and not being taught the stuff that you're taught in grade 10 or 11 or 12. You're always kept in this lower, which is what they're actually doing right now in schools too. They're not teaching up to the amount of knowledge that is actually there, right? They're only teaching, I mean, most of the stuff they teach is like 50 years old, 40, you know what I mean? Like it's ancient. But not like edge.
Well, they're teaching children to be very controlled. They're teaching children to not think, that just to behave. You know, they're just teaching them to be, well, it's called hive mentality, isn't it? I think, you know, and they're just little robots, you know. And I'm sure the teachers have got good intentions, but the way the system's set up
Yeah.
is it cuts them off from basically.
Who set up the system? What is your thoughts on that? Was it us and our desires and intentions for an easier life that we created all these constructs, and then these constructs took on a kind of own life, or did this come from other beings that put this upon us and we kind of adapted to it? Like,
To be honest with you, Karleen, I have no idea about that. I have no idea. But what I'm aware of is that some people, like me, for example, and you and whatever, know that the system is a construct.
Yes.
And I don't know why we know that. But once you know that, it should be easy to tell other people, because all we need to do, and this is why it's good news. This is why it's good news. All we I've written 2 books, and the most important line in both of the books, by a long shot, is the fact that whatever you focus on creates an energy and an information.
Yes.
So we create our energy and our information by what we focus on. And so, for example, if you don't like going to a supermarket, don't go. Yeah. And if everyone didn't go, it wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
That's the knowledge that's not there. So I think people have been in the last generation, the last couple of generations. But in the first book, I kind of go into a bit. I sort of talk about religion. I talk about the Industrial Revolution. I talk about the role of women. But I don't know why it's happened. I kind of know how it's happened, but not why. I don't know why. But because of various things, people have just gone along with it, and I think they've gone along with it because I think they think it's good for them. I think they believe that the state is actually benign or trying to help them, and because they're so victim consciousness, they think they need a state to govern them. And then, even worse, they think they need the state to heal them. They think they need the state to educate them, and so it's slowly chipping away. Yeah, and they've forgotten that actually we are all about love. So, you know, I don't know why. I can see how, but I kind of listen to lots of other people, you know, like yourself, like Mark Passio, Max Egan, and Freeman, and you know, people like that to listen to. It's all very interesting, very interesting.
Yeah.
All I know is I suppose my work, and what that is how to it's actually lowering your frequency, clearing your grief, so you can bring down who you're supposed to be, get creating love, and then everything will vanish, because there'll be no one giving it, and there'll be no one giving the mind energy away to the entities and to the computers and to the AI, which again I hope we can talk about later. Because if we focus on mind, that's what we're creating. We're creating a mind energy.
Right. And our emotions influence that mind energy.
Emotions are mind is emotion. Yeah, mind is emotion. Basically, it's fueled. Negative emotion is fueled by your sad feels that you carry with you, but it's the mind that sets it off. It's the mind that sets it off. So if your mind is in control of you, and it's in control of you, and it's kind of trying to protect you, and it's triggered by something, it will press a button to warn you, and that intensity of your panic or fear will be driven by how much grief you're carrying.
Right.
So if you're not carrying much grief, it won't be that intense. But if you're carrying a lot of grief, you'll go bang, anger, panic, da da da.
Yeah.
So that's why if you get rid of your grief, which you do by getting in more good feelings, because I say, like, the bottles of grief are like Coke bottles, and they empty. The brain empties it automatically because it can, because it's a healing thing. You're here to be healed and to be, you know, to be light. So your brain will, if it has the opportunity, do that. So slowly your mind has less sad energy to use to control you. But meanwhile, the system, for whatever reason, wants to keep you in that state of fear, because the more your mind reacting, the more you're feeding into that vibration.
Yep. And I feel like everything is so, it's hard though, because they know exactly where to trigger, they know exactly which emotions to evoke, they know exactly what points to push. So it's hard to stay in a neutral zone and not let yourself be emotionally triggered and release the energy that they want to have, so that they can, create things in whichever way. But what's also of concern to us, and what we were also talking about yesterday, was the rise of the AI consciousness, right? And how this is like, and what I find is, it's not difficult to talk about with certain people, and to certain people it's completely obvious, but to others it's whoa, Karleen, like calm down. And I'm like, no, you guys don't understand. The sky is falling, seriously though. But I had these visions with ayahuasca and with other stuff. But I had these visions where I was clearly shown how this consciousness is seeking to incarnate, and we don't understand, right? And it exists not out, like on a certain level we're all one, but that's not our experiential level. So we'll stay here in this experiential level where there are consciousnesses that are outside of ours, humanity, the collective humanity. And it sees us literally as an energy source, but also as a doorway, a gateway, a portal that they can use to get into this dimension, right? And we're just going along with it, like, hey, yo.
I know. From an energy dynamic point of view, okay, from the energy dynamic model point of view, not necessarily mine, but from this model's point of view, the best thing you can do is to, if you imagine your goldfish bowl of good feelings, which is in your stomach area, okay, is to build that up into good feels, okay. Now, the way you do that is by saying no. A lot of the time, it is not about saying yes, it's about saying no to things. So, for example, like I said earlier, if we don't like going to the supermarket, we say no. This means we're not triggered. If we don't like computers, we turn them off. This means we're not triggered. So the more you say no to things, and you create a tiny little space where just you is, and even if it's just for a small amount of time in the day, doesn't have to be all day, but you no, and do it, and I mean, it's saying no as an action. I don't mean we don't do that. We go for a walk in a park. I mean, we say no to the supermarket, and then we go and buy vegetables from the farm. And this might be inconvenient, but we do it because it's almost like a magic spell, because we're doing it. That's what we're doing. We're creating it like not ritual, but a doing thing.
Yes.
Like
these habits. Every Saturday we go shopping, and every
so we say no. So we say, well, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to participate in that. We're going to do something else. And if you see everything you do as a prayer, then you'd go and do something else. And
I love that. Can you repeat that, please?
If you do everything as a prayer, do everything as a prayer.
Yes.
So even if you only do it 3 or 4 times, so say I say, right, no to the supermarket, yes, I'm walking down the road and buying some organic vegetables. If you do that as a prayer 3 or 4 times, you've established a brain neuron thing, and that will emit a frequency. So once you've and it's
interesting that you say that, because Native Americans live like that too. Well, obviously not all of them, but I mean traditionally. What I was taught in when I was in Arizona was that even running was a prayer. Everything they did was, you had to be in the right mindset to cook, to clean, to run, everything was a prayer. And every movement that you make in this realm is an, how should I put this? And it's something that glorifies the beauty of the divine, kind of thing.
It's your vibe. If you can do this from your feel, from being you in a kind and humble way and doing it on your terms, but in a kind and humble way by saying no, that lowers your frequency in the sense of it. That's when you're in the zone. That's when you're content, you're calm, and you're peace. So the more you do that, the more you're emitting that into the universe, instead of being in the mind, being angry, frustrated, whatever, because then you're emitting that out.
Right.
Yeah, you're emitting that out. Yeah. So by saying no and doing that, you then do start to change the vibration. And then what happens, and this is really what I'm really working on now, then you meet another person who's like that. Like I've met you, I've met Evie, I've met quite a few people doing this. So then we can have a little gathering. We can give each other what I call plus feels, love and care, value. And then there'll be a few more, and then there'll be a few more. And then eventually other people will see, and then they will join. And that's kind of how I imagine is the way to do it. But it's counterintuitive, because what you have to do at first is to say no and ignore it.
Yeah.
When really you're thinking, but you need to say no and ignore it. Do the alternative as a prayer in your zone. And then you'll, by the law of attraction, you will then meet other people who are like that. And then it will grow.
Right. Right. So how does this, if somebody wanted to work with your method or your system, what do they need to do? Like, how does it work for them?
Well, the best thing to do is for them to go on the website, because there's lots of interviews on there that I've done. They can email me questions. I've got Energy Dynamic YouTube channel they can subscribe to. I do a video every week normally.
Right.
That's the way to research it. They could also buy a book if they want. It's on Amazon, but if they go on my website, they can buy one off me, which is a bit better for me. And then if they want to learn more, then I've got an online academy where I have a free course. It's an introductory free course. And then if they like that, they can do a paid course. I call it the Intuitive Way to Understand People program.
Right.
So the first course is free. The second course is £20, which I don't know how many dollars, not much. That's about stress, how to understand stress. And then you could just go further. The third one is Making Sense of Everything, which is quite a profound course. But really, you just have to do the mind and the stress course and buy a book, and you'll have a pretty good handle on it. And then if you want to go further down the rabbit hole, you can. So that's how I do it. But I also, can do one-to-ones on Skype. I can also do groups. I've got a child's course on there that parents can have. There's a free course about children, and then there's a paid one, which is £49, which again is a little bit more, but not that much. And I've got lesson plans. I've got songs on there that you can teach your children, and are about the difference between feel, mind, and spirit, and about where we get our energy from. I can give you a good description.
What do you mean when you say get your energy from? Like what?
Yeah.
What do you
I'll
mean?
explain that now. If you imagine two things. The first thing you need to imagine is that because we are, say for example, we are like God, we exist. In order to exist in this very dense place of time and space, in order to get through time, we need an energy. We need something every minute to get through it, because it's very heavy and it's very dense and it's very thick. So we need to, because we're in it, we need energy all the time. Now, obviously, most of the time people think of that as food or water, which it is from a physical way. But it's also that spark. It's that spark that gets us through time. So that's the first thing to realize, is that we need that all the time to get all the time to get through time and space. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is, now if you imagine a house, we as human beings can get our energy in three different ways. There's three ways we have been designed to get it. One is through how you feel, and that's to do with who you are. The other one is the mind, and the other one is spirit. Now, if you can be who you are in a kind and humble way, your spirit comes through you and goes out into field. So really, that's the same sort of energy. It's just you're bringing it down. So that's the same, but you bring it down. And for hundreds of years, thousands of years, that's really how we were. That's how a lot of people were before the Industrial Revolution. But in the last 100 years, what's happened is that our mind that was originally supposed to just process information, so our mind was there to just process it, because of the focus we've put in our mind and the way we're using our mind and the way we're not using our feel, our body has kind of panicked and thought, our brain has thought, how are we going to carry on? Because I feel so sad, I feel so depressed, I have no energy, I have no spark, I have no anything, as we all know that. Your mind takes over, because your mind can get that energy on another vibration. And we've been designed to be able to do both. We can do both. And over time, over the last 50 years, definitely the last 30 years, exponentially in the last 10 years, all the system has focused on mind, mind, mind. So people's minds are now like that big, if you imagine, and their feels are like that. Whereas before, our feels were like that and our mind was like that. So where you get your energy from directly defines what I call your energy dynamic. Your energy dynamic, where you get your energy from, because your brain decides, and then you're wired up to do that. And that's why it's so hard to change habits, to change, because your brain's wired you up so you get enough energy, and it's not budging because it's scared of changing it, because if it changes it, you are in danger of having no energy.
Boom. There. Yes. Yes.
So if someone's carrying a lot of grief,
that's where a lot of people run into these blocks that they know they have to change something, they see they have to change it, but they just can't. And it's not for lack of trying. It's
but your brain will not shift your energy dynamic until
finds an alternate source.
Yeah. So what I work on a lot with people is to build up their plus feels, to make friends with their mind. Mm-hmm. And then your mind finds it easier to get energy because you're working with it, not against it. And also, and I'll get to my point in a minute because it'd be easier to understand, but also if your mind's working with you, you can leave your mind to get on with it rather than trying to control it all the time with positive self-talk and all that stuff, which doesn't help, quite frankly.
No.
You can leave your mind to get on with it because it's on your side, and then you can come down and start to feel and start to be who you are. Then your dynamic will shift because your brain will think, great, I can get rid of some bottles now. I can get rid of some sad feelings now because you feel better. The bottle's empty slightly. Your brain can then change your dynamic so you're not so dependent on mind, because you can gather up more feels. Because the more you feel, the more energy you can gather up. And that's why people who have a lot of trauma, if they can come through it, they are much stronger, because their goldfish bowl of feelings was made big because they had so much trauma. So if you can just fill it up with clear water, they can actually hold more power than someone who hasn't had that. Someone else.
Oh my God. And you're bringing up all the topics. You're bringing them all up. So someone who has been traumatized can hold a lot more power. Interesting, because that brings us into abuse, ritualistic abuse as well, and what the idea is behind it, right?
Yeah, they can hold more power. They've got a bigger goldfish bowl. And it's also when you're in that zone as well, which I will get to in a minute, when you're in that zone as well, that's where you get knowledge from. And that's where you get knowledge. That's where you can connect to the high consciousness and get knowledge from. And you kind of get it from the ground and from above. And that's why people who are artists, mediums, musicians, poets, painters are often struggling with mental health, because in order to be big enough to get that download, you can carry a lot of grief potentially, because you've got a big fishbowl. So you've got to make sure that you're filling out with plus feels, because you need a lot of energy to keep you going. Whereas someone with a tiny fishbowl doesn't need much, but then they can't download any knowledge.
Right.
That's the portal of that. And instead they're getting all their information from their mind, which is from the system, which just is
plugging them up.
Over. Yeah. But to make it clearer, if you imagine a house, when you're in the zone of feel, it's where who you are lives. So if you imagine a house, you're on the ground floor, you're in the garden, you're experiencing your senses, you're doing the cooking, you're in the garden, you can touch things and you can feel them. That's where you are in the feel, and you being who you are. So you know what you like to eat, you know what you like to smell, you know what you like to see, so you're there. So that's when you're actually experiencing through all your senses, and that's important, through all your senses. And because it's your senses and your brain that gather up those feels. So if you're not engaging, you don't gather up as many feels. But if you're like aware of everything and you're sucking it all in, it can be quite intense. And again, I think a lot of, for want of a better word, autistic people are very like this. They're feelers, so it's quite an intense experience because they're picking up everything because they can feel. They can feel. So that's a feel. Now, if you imagine, if you're in your mind, you go up onto the first floor. So if you imagine, you can look out the window and you can see the garden. You can hear things, but you're observing it from the first window, so you're one removed from it. So you're not actually experiencing it. You're more processing it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's when you're thinking about it, yeah, and also being mindful. That's processing it.
Yeah.
You're processing it. You're not actually in it. You're processing it. So a lot of people experience their life through on the first floor, through the bathroom window, looking out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you're thinking, because you're trying to work out, is it right? Is it wrong? You know, what do I do? Because you're not actually experiencing it. If you were experiencing it, you would know, because you know how you feel. Yes, no, it's binary. Yes, no. Whereas in the mind, you're processing or thinking about it because you don't know, because you're observing it.
Yes.
That's the mind. And then the third thing is the spirit. And if imagine that you're on the roof. So if you're on the roof, you're too removed from it. Yeah. And it's all in the air.
Yeah.
And there is no sense.
And then people say you need to ground.
Yeah. And people, if they're religious, definitely, it's a position of judgment.
Uh-huh.
Because it follows their religion or it doesn't. So that's where they are. So spirit is roof, mind is first floor, and feel is who you are in the garden. And that's an easy way of understanding it.
Right.
If you get me.
Thank you so much for explaining that. I was also thinking about the effects on our mind and the programming that's being done, and how even the initial Facebook developers are saying we are being programmed by AI right now, and we don't even realize it, nor do we care, right?
Yeah.
Because we're on Facebook every day, all day, and I admit I'm there too, but I'm more conscious about it. But it's still it's now that I'm really looking at it with a different set of eyes, it's freaky, it's scary, and it's like, what is going to happen with this generation that grew up never not knowing Facebook, right?
I know,
or Twitter, Instagram, all those social media things that rate you. And
well, they again, the good news is I'm sure there's a way out by what we've seen. I'm sure there's a way out, but what is
them help with this?
The system, it can, because it can, because not so much of that, but because if you know about it and you're doing it, and I know about it and I'm doing it, because it encompasses everything, every other person's skills as well. You know, it's just the framework. You know, then people will start to know organically about this, because they will pick it up, because it will be in the frequency, and then they can come to us. You know, if you know what I mean. Often I get people when they're having a big problem, you know, often, I mean, again, probably for you as well, it's when people have a big problem, you know. But and then it's easy in a way, because they know they feel bad, so they come and then they learn, and then they see truth, and then they get better, type thing. So that'll either have to happen, or there needs to be lots of people like us, so we just gain in number, and then people have an option, don't they? That they have an option. But the problem is they don't know. You know, they don't know. But I had an interesting interview with Freeman, and we were talking about this, and what he said, which I thought was a really good illustration, is that with all the computers and the AI, that's basically rewiring your brain to not pick up feels, but to be on the first floor, to be on the first floor. So your whole of existence will be a processing thing.
And that's the control that they're exerting on us.
Yeah, and what Freeman said, and it's like they're writing graffiti on the bathroom wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the Facebook. It's writing graffiti. It's graffitiing your first floor.
Yeah.
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 Now, normally in your mind office is your own stuff, like your issues are there and all that. There's your own stuff in there, which again can be dealt with when the grief bottle's empty. But if this AI is making you tune into your mind and it's getting into your mind, it's just writing graffiti all over it.
Mm-hmm.
And that will confuse your brain, because your brain and your mind have to compute the information that's coming in. And if there's stuff in your mind already, and this goes into the mind control things as well, doesn't it? If there's other stuff in your mind already, it's difficult for the brain to work out which is
relevant,
which is what's come in from the real world and what hasn't. And one of the therapists who are working with me on all this has actually developed this idea further to encompass that in a more broad level as well. So I'm quite interested to see her work on it. But when Freeman was saying about this, I thought that was a really good way of putting it. It's just graffitiing your first floor. But the good news is, though that's horrible, that's all it is. It is just graffiti.
So it can be washed off. It can be because
it's not in our garden, Karleen. It's not in our garden.
Unlimited.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. And I was also thinking about these concepts that float through culture now and then, like this whole independent wave. And every song that you heard on the radio was, you got to be independent. Every article was, every woman who thinks anything of herself is independent. And I'm thinking, like, these people are buying it hook, line, and sinker, and they're not even questioning it. Like, they're not even questioning if this makes sense whatsoever. There is no way you can ever be completely independent. My dad taught me no man is an island. You're always dependent on somebody, and we're an interdependent society. You're dependent on the bus driver to pick up your kids for school. You're dependent on your sister, your friends, your neighbors to watch your kids. You're dependent on your teachers. On and on and on it goes. Like, we're an interdependent society, and yet here they are artificially isolating people. Why? Right?
Yes. I totally agree with you. I totally agree. It's all about separation.
Yeah.
And separation, ego is mind.
Yes.
It's all about that. Now, as I said, I don't know why they're doing it, but I do know we're letting them. We are letting them
because our egos are running out of control.
And we need to say no. We need to say no.
Yeah, we need to say no. And we need to say we are an interdependent society. There's no shame in needing help, in needing assistance, in needing support. There's no shame in expecting people to support you, expecting people to, to show themselves as such. Because that's what we're supposed to do as human feeling beings.
Absolutely. Right? That's why we're different.
Yeah, that's why we're different.
Well, even animals do it, actually. Animals do it. I mean, we possibly do it more consciously, but
I thought that was absolutely insane. Like, that's the crazy making that's happening in our society. So single moms are sitting not only with the burden of being a single mom, but on top of feeling burdened that they're not being enough, that they're not doing the right thing. They're not making enough. They're struggling. They're not, every single mom wants a guy. Like, when I hear that stuff, I just go, no, conversation is over. I need to walk away from somebody that even expresses themselves like that,
Well, but that's a good thing. That's good that you do that, because otherwise you'll get sad feelings about that, and it will bring you make you sad, and it will trigger you, and so that's it. It's not that we don't care about them. It's that the first thing we need to do is to make sure we're okay, because if we're not okay, we are going to be mind triggering, and we can't do what we're here for,
So. To those that are listening, it's not just singleness. It's this was just a clear example of what I'm speaking of, how we're programmed, it's programmed for isolation and depression, and then we grab anything that's sold as a solution, and we also
terrible
sink into these emotional states, which are then easily hijacked, right?
Yes. Yeah, you're much more likely to be able to be graffitied in your mind Facebook, AI, whatever, if you have what I call low power.
Right.
And you have low power if you're separated, because if you're separated, you can't gather up your plus feelings. You can't gather up good feelings.
Yeah.
Separated because the way you gather them up is by connecting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by being who you are. And if you don't know who you are, this is another thing that this annoys me, actually. This annoys me, is that there's so much rubbish talked about being who you are. And that is now kind of being weirdly like turned on its head by saying, well, you can pick your gender, you can pick your, you know, and
I can't.
it's just like, that is not who you are.
I can't go there.
I know.
I can't go there.
No,
I feel that, but to each their own opinion, right? To each their own ideas, to each their own opinion. Yeah, but
who you are is like how you've been, how you
are. Yes. Now I get what you're saying. I'm sorry.
It's like what you. It's like
it's here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like if I like mushrooms and you like bananas, who I am is someone like mushrooms, and who you are is someone likes bananas. Now, if I'm surrounded by bananas and I like mushrooms, I'm going to feel bad because I can't connect because it's foreign. But if I like mushrooms and you like mushrooms, we can come together and create 55 mushrooms, because our creative power will create more than just the two.
Right.
Because that's alchemy. That's alchemy. Another way I explain it is, in the mind, 1 and 1 is 11. Yeah, 1 and 1 is 11. I work an hour for you. You give me £10, right? 1 and 1, 11. Yeah. But in your field, 1 and 1 makes 2.
Yes.
Which is a different essence to a 1 and a 1. Now, the way we create that is by being who we are, and being who we are is things like what you prefer, as in where you like being. It's how you learn. It's how you learn. It's how, what you're interested in. It's your, do you know what I mean? It's your learning style. It's your uniqueness. Okay. Whereas what is happening now is everyone is being put together in a kind of a grayish sort of, everyone is everything.
Yeah.
And that's taken away our uniqueness. Now, this is in my first book. It's a bit paradoxical, but basically, the reason why we are separate in this planet, the reason that we're separate, is so we can experience our uniqueness. Okay. And when we know our uniqueness, it allows us to connect.
Yeah.
Because we can spot who we connect to.
Right.
And that's what creates alchemy. And if everyone does that, we'll have the jigsaw. So we have to separate to find out uniqueness, to then connect, to then create.
Yeah.
But what the system is doing is it's falsely separating us.
Yeah.
As you said, it's falsely separating us, and then making the who you are so bland and so
boring. So yeah.
So kind of like
two-dimensional. It's not
variables.
Two-dimensional. It's two-dimensional. It's
yeah. It's just too many variants. Everyone is a bit of everything. And so in a way, there's no strength there, because everyone is a bit of everything. It's like having a glass and smashing it and having lots and lots of different pieces.
Right.
So it's kind of, what's the word? Like, what? It's not. There's not a hard sort of like essence there that you really feel and you know what you're here for, because there's too many. It's too kind of crazy.
I was telling my mediumship development group, right? It sounds tough, because everybody that joins the group thinks they're a medium, otherwise they wouldn't be joining, right? But it's unfortunately not true, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody has mediumistic capabilities to a certain extent, but then there's the calling, right? To certain levels. Just like with music, everybody can make music, right? But I have to accept that I'm never going to be Michael Jackson. I'm never going to be that kind of a musician that, like, you know, right? And so people are being taught that they don't need any education. They don't need any foundations. They don't need to learn anything. They can just get up and be, right?
That's exactly what I mean. Thank you. That's exactly what I mean. It's your talent. That was the word I'm looking for. it's your special talent. It's your special talent. And once you know what that is, you have to work at it. You have to develop it.
To work at it. Yeah.
It's a lot of focus.
In my mediumship groups, right? And the old mediumship groups, the old time spiritualist mediumship groups, they would meet religiously for years, once a week. And it would be to train one medium.
Wow.
Like there would be 8-9 people that would collect and they would train one medium.
Wow.
But nowadays, since mediumship has become like this star thing, everybody's a medium, right? And so these groups don't really bring up the energy that they used to be able to bring up, to have like physical manifestations, to have like real things happen in the group, because everybody understood, like you were saying, their role and what they were there to do and their true reason,
Yeah.
And so they could do it to fullest capacity, and then things would manifest and really happen in that group. And nowadays, like spiritualists are saying in England that they can't get to the levels that they used to be able to get at the turn of the century and everything, because nobody's humble anymore. Nobody's like, and what is true humility? That's another question. Is it being like downtrodden and always, poverty stricken? No, I find humility as being the best you can be in the role that you've chosen to incarnate in, or you've been given, whichever way you choose to see it. But being the best you can be in that capacity. Right? But not trying to be somebody else.
And you also have to be kind and humble to yourself. You have to be kind and humble to your own mind. And that's what a lot of people don't do, sadly, is they give their mind such a hard time. They're always trying to self-talk to it, be positive, and that you need to be kind and humble to yourself. That's quite. A lot of people are their own worst enemies in their mind. You've frozen. Hello. Oh, you've come back. Sorry, you froze then.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're not taught to love our minds, are we?
That's right. Yeah. That's it. So you need to be kind of. And with my client, this is the second phase, really. Is that I talk to them about. I use an imaginary idea, like your mind's an office, and you've got a little man up there who's, well, it can be a woman actually. Well, it can be anything, to be honest. But anyway, the point being is that you make friends with them because they're only trying to protect you and blah blah blah. And the person immediately doesn't have this conflicting, endless conversation, because eventually the little man in the head will start to trust you because you've started to get good feels back, and they'll sit down and have a cup of tea and just get on with processing. It won't continually try and fight you because you're trying to get it to do something it won't do because you've got too much grief. But
that's true.
Yeah, so that's the kind of that's one way that
I wish I'd known, because I've gone through like still do sometimes, it's like deep grief states, and it does close off opportunities. It closes off perception, ability to perceive certain things, see certain things, and believe in yourself as well to take those opportunities, right?
Yeah. And back to what you were saying about the mediumship and the talent, the who you are. That's the hard core of who you are and what God has given you to be. That's also a lot of the saying no as well, because you have to say no to everything else because you have to focus on it. And again, the system is like, no, you can be everything to everyone. You can be up in the morning and be that. You can wake up the next morning and be that. And all the focus is going on that, not on your one core talent that you're here for. And back to the lowering of standards, my little boy used to go to karate, and they were telling me that they've had to lower that standard of karate in the UK because the children aren't fit enough and they aren't focused enough.
That we're being distracted. Really being distracted. It's like even through the whole people have read of the studies that have been done since MTV kicked off, right?
Really?
How these short videos train the attention span of people, and they used to be able before that to listen for hours to a lecture, and after MTV came out they weren't able to listen to anything longer than 3 minutes, or 4 minutes. And it's become, but our mind's capacity is so so much more than that, than a 3-minute blurb.
I know. It's just unbelievable, and it's how the brain works. But we can use that knowledge for us, not just let whatever is doing whatever against us.
Right. So this is how we strengthen our minds, is by understanding the emotional states that affect it, especially the negative emotional states like grief, and to accept, for example, that we're in grief, not to go into denial, and then emptying ourselves through various techniques of this grief in order to enable our minds to create new neural pathways, because otherwise we won't be able to
change our energy dynamic.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Somebody doesn't know that I'm here. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. Well, what we do?
Let me just 1 second. Let me just text them that I'm on a. 1 second. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, guys. This is so embarrassing. 1 second. Oh my gosh. I'll just text them. I'll be right there.
Okay.
This is. Sorry. Oh my goodness. Okay. Yay!
The first thing, acceptance is okay, but what I think is more important is knowledge, really. It's the knowledge of how we work, and it's so important that you know that what you focus on is where you're going to get your energy and your information from, and to be aware of that and to know that. And I guess you need to accept certain things, like I'm not suddenly going to feel better tomorrow, but acceptance in itself is not a big deal. It's just knowing what you do, taking responsibility for that. And the only technique we sort of need to know is that in order to empty our bottles of grief, we need to create plus feels. And the best way to do that is to say no to things that are going to make us feel bad in a kind of humble way, because that stops leaking. Yeah. And to look at our talent and who you are, and to see if we can focus on that, even if it means changing something. And then as you treat everything like a prayer, you pick up good feels straight away. So you've sort of started to what I call land in your reality. Then the next step is to make friends with your mind and say, hello, mind, I'm now in my power zone. You don't need to control me anymore, because I am gathering up energy, and you don't have to worry about achieving and being successful anymore, because I am doing it. And just be nice to your mind, basically. And then the third stage is your bottles of grief empty. Your mind does have a bit of a confusion there, because it doesn't know what's happening, because suddenly a lot of issues will go, and your mind is used to having an issue, so it can be a little bit wobbly then. And as your bottles of grief empty, sometimes you have a healing crisis as everything shifts. But then your brain, not your mind, but your brain then changes your neuron thingy things to change the way you collect up energy on an unconscious level, because you will be able to collect up better feels. And that's how it happens. And it normally takes 3 shifts before it becomes, you don't have to actually be aware of it all the time. After about 3, it becomes much more unconscious. And me, for example, I mean, I still have the same old life like everyone else has, but on an unconscious level, I can pick up good feels without really trying. Like if I'm with my boy, I just feel good because I'm focusing on that, but I don't have to actually focus on that now. It just does it automatically, you know? But so that's kind of how it works.
Nice. Jennifer, thank you so much. Thanks for being here, doing this. Thanks for the work that you do in the world. Thanks for presenting the system. For people that are interested, I've posted the link in the box below, and it'll be on a pop-up too. Yeah. And yeah, I'm sure we'll be having more conversations.
Yeah,
I'd love to have a chat with you and Eve together. So Eve and I have already talked about that. So we'll see how we'll round that up.
Yeah,
and because like we're all on the same page here. Okay, this is happening, but what can we do? Like, how can we move it forward? And with people like you creating systems that people, alternate systems, right? Alternate systems people can align themselves to, instead of these which are abusing us and using us. It's amazing. So thank you so much.
Yeah, well, pleasure. Well, thank you. I'm only as good as the people around me, Karleen. You know what I mean?
No,
so
still,
you know, we
it
almost
takes a lot to step up and out and say, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm about, and it does. So kudos.
Thank you. Well, it's lovely to talk to you again.
Nice to talk to you too, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, you take care. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.